Looking back on your time as a 16-year-old can often feel like looking back on a whole other life. As a 16-year-old, I was full of such joy and optimism. Yes, there was worry and terror, but I will always remember the absolute joy of just being able to explore being myself, of wearing mascara for the first time, of boldly buying a cheap red lipstick and unashamedly putting it down on the counter, just feeling pure excitement at how it was going to make me feel. I remember the first time I wore heels to college. I was worried and terrified of what was going to happen, but it wasn't really an environment that I was supported in. But the power and confidence that these 4-inch boots were giving me was enough for that to all feel distant and not part of my reality. Yes, people were laughing and staring and calling me names, but that all just seemed to ricochet off me, as if I was a superhero. As if by exploring my femininity, I had somehow gained superpowers. The naive joy of just saying, fuck it, let's do this. But I can't do that now. But yeah, surprise. But I can't do that now. 7 years later, and that joy has turned to worry. Worry has turned to terror. Terror has turned to tears, and tears turning to embarrassment before settling into just not leaving the house at all. I wanted to be able to stand here today and tell you all why being the most authentic versions of yourself is the best and most courageous thing that any human being can do. But I can't tell a lie. I can't share words with you that I myself am not following through no fault of my own, but because of external societal factors that are impacting on every single part of my existence. Trans and gender non-conforming people in the UK and across the world have always been under threat. White supremacy and fascism are the fuel to transphobia's fire, and as they rise and gain dominance in our world, so does transphobia. But we've been saying this for years. We've been stood here saying the same message, telling the same stories, feeling the same emotions, only to see our problems treble in size. So, here I am again, but this time it's urgent. The current climate of transphobia in the UK is being peddled by a heavily organised minority who are using their status to stand hand in hand with fascists, all because of their fictional belief that trans and gender non-conforming people are going to endanger their safety in public spaces. That gender neutrality is going to cause them harm, when it is in fact the opposite. As a collective society, we engage with tens of millions of pieces of online content every single day. Over 3 years' worth of online commentary was recently analysed by anti-bullying charity Ditch the Label, in which they found that out of 10 million points of discussion, 1.5 million of those were transphobic. That's 1,369 transphobic thoughts, comments, and reactions shared digitally every single day since 2016. That's 57 comments an hour, nearly 1 a minute for the past 3 years. The past 3 months, however, have been the hardest of my life. I've not wanted to leave the house for the first time ever. I've not worn makeup due to fears of being beaten. I've not expressed femininity publicly because of the speed in which we are torn down and scrutinized as soon as we step into society. Trans siblings of mine have all been on rock bottom, constantly ringing each other every single day to check that we're still okay, to check that we're still here, to check that we still want to be here. Within the trans community, our history and our fight started with Black trans women, and yet they are the group that are facing the terrifying reality of this climate the hardest. In 2013, 12 trans women of color were murdered in the US. Fast forward to 2016, and that number has risen to 22. In 2017, it was 26. It's rising, and yet people aren't listening. They're not caring. Even within our rainbow-cladded walls, the cisgender community, which is those that don't identify as trans, as well as white members of our community, are turning a blind eye to this homicidal epidemic that we are in. I wish I could make you all really care. When you leave your seats today and go about your days, I wish I could make you all consistently care. Like, really, really care. I don't want this to be my job, the only thing I talk about. Trans and gender non-conforming people do not and should not exist to just be mouthpieces of our oppression. But we have to talk about it, because we need you to hear it and feel it. We need you to stand up and show up, because if we're honest, for so long no one has. We need you now more than ever, because now we're in a time when the fight against us is so strategic and planned that we need you to stand with us as we organize ourselves to counter this movement. It might not feel like it, but this will impact everybody. Anti-trans rhetoric hits trans people first and everybody else second because of its roots in white supremacy and fascism. We need action. We need your help. The joy that I once had as a 16-year-old is now a distant memory, but a reminder that it is possible to feel joyous. A reminder that non-binary people are capable of joy. A reminder that being non-binary is one of the most affirming and nourishing aspects of our lives. A signal to the younger generations of trans people to let them know that society is on their side. Now, that road leading out of my college is literally one of the longest roads I've ever walked down. It's huge. I remember leaving that day in my boots. I've been bullied and ridiculed to within an inch of my life, and although I felt it, the words just sitting on top of my skin very delicately, I just didn't care. I've moved on from just existing. I was thriving now. I'd opened Pandora's box and it was full of freedom. Just before the words sunk in, I brushed them off, and I looked down the road, and I walked to the end. A journey I'd done many times before, but this time it was different. I walked down that road a different person, a happier person, a person full of pure excitement and joy. But now that road seems never-ending. It's a road that I cannot see the light at the end of, and it's a road that is broken, and I cannot try to fix it on my own anymore. As a community, we are constantly looking out for each other and ensuring that we lift each other up. Ensuring that we open the door wide so that we can all be there and be present. Now it's time for you to do that too. To look out for us, to join us whilst we're still here. Thank you.